episode 144. Well, hello, friends. We are just powering our way through November, and we thought it would be a great idea, since lots of people participate in National Novel Writing Month, to do an episode this week about writing rituals and how to get more done with Elizabeth Barbour. I want to tell you, when I recorded this message with her, this podcast episode with her, I knew her because she's been in our community for a while, and she's gone through Book Launch in a Box, and we've been connected through the years. But since then, I actually got to meet her in person and at our Charlotte book marketing conference, and she is just so delightful. And since Charlotte, the two of us have become really close, and I'm just excited to re-listen to this episode now as a friend of hers, and before just kind of being a colleague who kind of knew her a little bit from going through some programs together. And so it's really fun to share this with you. We cover writing rituals, the importance of having rituals in place, writing rituals in community, all kinds of fun things. And right now, community is just so important, I think, in general, but it's really helpful if you're trying to get through the process of writing your book. Before we get into the episode, I want to do a couple of reminders. Obviously, if you haven't gotten your ticket to the Women in Publishing Summit yet, please do make sure you head on over to womeninpublishingsummit.com. We're in early bird special. You can save $100 on the price. We're already doing monthly networking. We've got an active Facebook group growing in our community, and we've got some pre-conference bonus sessions that our attendees are invited to. So it's not too early. Grab your ticket as your, happy Thanksgiving present, or early Christmas, or whatever you want to consider it, and join us at the conference. And the other thing I want to talk about is we just had, I think it was International Kindness Day. On November 17th, I believe, was a Kindness Day. And I wanted to share this simple little story because I think something like this will impact our community as well. And that is just how important it is to be kind, especially in the world that we live in, and how kindness begets kindness. Do y'all remember when everybody was doing the pay it forward thing to somebody would pull up at Starbucks and they'd be like, I want to pay for the person behind me. And that then the next person was like, well, I'll pay for the person behind me, et cetera, et cetera. And it actually became a problem for Starbucks. But anyway, it kindness really does, when you do something kind for someone else, it has a trickle down effect. So the short version of this story is that this week we had someone reach out to us, and there was a misunderstanding of one of our products that we were selling. She thought she was getting it for free because of a program that she's in, and it was a misunderstanding. But she expressed to me that the budget was really tight, and she got her ticket early to the conference because she thought this particular training was included in that. And I understand those days. Many of you have heard me share the story of a time early in my business where I was so broke. I remember looking in my fridge one day, and there was literally an apple, a cheese stick, and a beer. And I really couldn't afford to go buy groceries for the next couple of days. So I get it, and I take compassion. And I told her, I said, okay, I totally get it, and I can understand why you were confused by this offer, and I'm going to go ahead and honor this. And I just said, I would just encourage you to think of ways that when you're back on your feet or whatever, you can either pay it forward or pay it backwards. And she sent me the most beautiful email, y'all. I have been in tears all morning over this email, and I'm just going to give you the very brief version of it. This particular person is an artist, and a little while ago she received an email from someone who had seen her work and knew she did portraits, and explained to her that her mother-in-law is dying and she would really like to have a portrait done as a present for Christmas. And so the person who sent me the email said, I, at the time, told her my pricing, and the woman was like, oh my gosh, there's no way I can afford that. And so the conversation ended. Well, after I encouraged her to think about ways that she could pay it forward, she remembered this conversation, and she dug back up the emails and decided, you know what, this is a really worthy way of me giving back to someone else She said, I have all the materials. I wasn't going to have to go spend any money. And I wrote back to the woman, or called the woman, and told her that she was willing to do it, but it wouldn't be ready by Christmas time, but she could do it by like Valentine's Day. And she said she's still recovering from the screaming that this woman, like when she heard that she could do it for her. And I just wanted to share this story because sometimes we don't, oh my gosh, I'm going to cry again. Sometimes we don't understand the simple impacts of something small and simple. And yes, I could have said, I'm sorry, I can't give you this course for free. It's not included, but I didn't. I gave it to her anyway. And the trickle down effect, and it will not always be so impactful, right? But the trickle down effect is that now someone is getting a life-changing, monumental gift for a present for someone, to honor someone who won't be here anymore in 6 months. Oh my gosh, I'm going to cry. And you guys know that, a lot of you know that I almost died this summer, so I'm especially emotional about things that result in something kind for someone or the family of someone who is dying. But I just want to remind you that sometimes we get so wrapped up in things and we forget that little kindnesses to people can sometimes make a massive difference. So I want to say thank you to this young woman who made this generous offer to someone else because of something that because of my request to her to do something. And I want to encourage everybody as we come into the holidays, when life is frantic and people are hurting and people are a little crazier than normal, and to just think about ways that you might be able to do some simple act of kindness for someone else, because it can make such a big difference. So this is the perfect podcast episode to follow up with, because Elizabeth is just such an amazing, wonderful, gentle, kind soul. And it's about taking care of ourselves and building community and doing good things, and around the topic of rituals. But really, that's Elizabeth's bigger message is how we can take care of ourselves and how we can do this in community, and just bringing light. And I hope that this episode brings you light as well. And I'm just so grateful to have such an amazing community of incredible people. So enjoy the show. Welcome to the podcast, a place where you can come to get inspiration, motivation, help, encouragement, and support in your journey to write, publish, and sell your book. Hosted by Alexa Bigwarfe. 'Cause I've been where you've been, and I felt what you're feeling, and I don't want to get in your way. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Publish Her podcast. I'm your host, Alexa Bigwarfe, and today we're going to be talking about writing rituals to inspire creativity and get stuff done. There was another word that Elizabeth put in there, but we will go with stuff, just to be honest. So my guest today is Elizabeth Barbour. She has spent 23 plus years helping people integrate mind, body, and spirit for wholeness. As an intuitive life and business coach, shamanic practitioner, speaker, and author, she is a creative force when it comes to releasing pain, healing wounds, transforming old stories into new beginnings, and celebrating the beauty and joy of life's milestones. She's the author of 2 books, Smart Self-Care for Busy Women, Find the Me Time You Crave, and the newly released Sacred Celebrations, Designing Rituals to Navigate Life's Milestone Transitions. I feel calmer just even reading that name out loud. Elizabeth firmly believes that the world's health and well-being is dependent upon emotional and spiritual practices that keep each one of us grounded and centered, especially during times of change. Amen to that. Welcome, Elizabeth. So glad to have you.
Thanks so much for having me, Alexa.
Oh, goodness. So writing rituals and being more productive and all of these things are so important for us to learn and figure out. But let's start at the very basic. And what is a writing ritual?
Yeah, so writing rituals are a consistent set of actions or things that we do before, during, and after when we write. In my book, I talk about rituals as being a sacred container for transformation and for healing to occur. And so when I think about writing rituals, the act of writing itself is transformative, right? Not only for you, the writer or the author, but also for people who are reading it. And so it's setting up that container every time we sit down to write, even if it's 15 or 30 minutes, or if it's a 6 hour block during the day, should we be so lucky to have that time.
Right.
But it's really establishing that container.
And so, what would be the benefit of having a ritual instead of just being like I am, where I'm like, okay, I have 15 minutes. I'm just going to sit down and try and write, which doesn't work. So maybe that's the,
Right.
but what are the benefits of a writing ritual?
Exactly right. That doesn't work very often, put it that way.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you'll grab something in the fly, but certainly, I mean, there's so many benefits of writing rituals. Obviously, consistency, right? If you know that, hey, this is a set day, this is a set time, this is when I'm going to sit down and I'm going to write. It helps with productivity and accountability.
Mhm.
But the other important thing I think about writing rituals, and we'll get into it when we talk about some of the specifics, what can people do? But they energize and inspire us. So, maybe you have a special pen that belonged to, I don't know, a favorite family member who was also a writer. It's like a fountain pen or something really, really special. And you use that when you're writing longhand. Those kinds of rituals can connect us to why we're writing, why we're doing what it is that we do. So I think getting energized, getting inspired. I think the other thing that rituals really do, especially when we sort of carve out the space and time, is really invite us to be present.
Mhm.
We are so busy. I mean, and you started off right before we started recording. You're like, I've had a really busy day. And it's like when we say, okay, I've had a really busy day and I'm going to commit to 30 minutes of just sitting and writing. It allows us to slow down, to deepen our breathing, to like put the butt in the chair and your fingers on the keyboard and just breathe deeply and get really present and say, okay, what is coming through me today? What am I open to receiving today that I can translate to the page?
All right. So let's talk then. Like, how do we create these rituals? What kind of rituals are there?
Yeah. Well, I want to say I have a whole lot of ideas that I want to share with people, but I want to ask you, what are some of your writing rituals? Are there any things that you do when you want to sit down and be
Listen,
productive?
I have no writing rituals.
Okay.
I try to find, well, I would like to have some writing rituals. For a long time, I had a specific block of time that was carved out just for writing, but that's hard for me too, because if there's other things going on, or if life gets busy, or, something happens, like last week, I had Friday blocked off as a day to write. Well, then I didn't realize that they had planned a lovely 4-day unexpected weekend. I mean, I guess it wasn't unexpected
Uh,
if I've been looking at the school schedule, but I didn't expect a 4-day weekend like 2 weeks after spring break, right? So my kids are home, so there's distractions and all of those types of things. But I would say if I have anything at all that's a ritual, it actually comes down to just things that I do to help me keep focused, turn off everything else. Uh,
mhm.
shut down the email, refuse to even look at the email because I might be like, well, let me check and see if this person replied. And then 3 hours later, I'm still in my email inbox. So I try to just avoid other distractions as much as possible. And that's pretty much as far as I get with any kind of ritual.
Okay. Well, that's good. I mean, that's a start. That's a start. So maybe you get some ideas here from our
Yes, I hope
conversation.
so.
Well, I mean, I think there's some really sort of simple things that we can do that we can use as prompts to create the sacred space. So a really simple thing would be, making your cup of coffee or your cup of tea especially if you're writing in the morning, let's say, so you might get up, go for a walk, stretch, maybe do a little yoga or some meditation, something like that, sort of get your body moving, and then go get your favorite cup of tea that, you only drink in the morning when you're doing your writing, and you go make that for yourself. And it's like as soon as you have made that cup of tea or coffee, if that's your bent, then you go straight into the office and say, okay, now it's time to write.
Mhm.
So the have you read Atomic Habits by James Clear?
It's been suggested to me several times, so I suppose I should add that to my TBR.
Yes, it's a good one. And I'll be honest, I haven't read the whole thing. I've skimmed it. But one of the things he talks about, and he didn't actually coin this term, but he talks about habit stacking.
Oh my gosh,
Um,
somebody, I was just actually, I just in our first podcast of season 4 talked about habit stacking. I
okay,
didn't know that's
great.
where that came from. I'd had a conversation with someone else and she told me that's what she does. So there you go.
Yes, yes, yes. So it's this idea, and he's not the one who coined it. And forgive me, I'm forgetting the name of the author who actually wrote the book called Habit Stacking. But Clear references it in Atomic Habits, and I think that's why a lot of people are talking about it now because his
Yeah.
book has gotten so big. But it's this idea that we layer things on top of things that we already do.
Mhm.
So if you're already going to get up in the morning and take a shower and brush your teeth. Um, and then you're going to go meditate and then you're going to go for a walk or, whatever it is that you do, but you kind of stack them on top of one another. So then what you do is you just add your writing routine to that habit stack. And then it just becomes, oh, the next thing I do, okay, once I make my tea or once I make my coffee, all right, then it's time to go into the office.
Mhm.
So that's one thing to think about. Some other fun, I always encourage people to be thinking about sensory things. Lighting a candle. It could be like literally your writing ritual could be as simple as I go to my desk, I have my favorite candle that smells like my favorite smell. I light it, which is the sign that okay, this is sacred time. I got to focus. And then when I'm complete writing, I blow out my candle. Like it can really be that simple.
Nice.
But I think what's different, and this is one thing I want to share for your listeners, is the reminder that a habit and a ritual are really two different things.
Uh,
The habit or the routine can be, okay, I'm going to write this day, this time, this number of words or whatever. What makes it the ritual is something that makes it more sacred,
okay.
something that makes it more intentional, more meaningful. Another example would be, maybe wearing a piece of jewelry. Maybe your grandmother was an amazing poet, let's just say, and you have a piece of her jewelry. And every time you sit down to write, you put on her necklace or her pin or whatever. I know someone told me years ago she had a writing shawl. And
Huh?
so every time she would sit to write, she would literally just take her shawl and drape it over her shoulders. And that was how she got into the mode for writing. Um, let's see. Oh, yeah, I had something I was going to show you. Oh, well, I guess your listeners won't be able to see it. But I have some crystals that I use for writing. And I'll be honest, I don't even know what these particular ones are for folks who are listening. They're brown and they have all these swirlies. And I've actually tried looking them up and I can't figure out what type of crystal they are. But years ago, when I was writing my first book, I picked them up at a metaphysical store and they said these are good for writing. So
Huh.
every time I write, I have these two little bitty rocks and I just kind of roll them around in my hand to get creative ideas going. But there's a lot of crystals that are good for writing, like clear quartz is really good to get focused and be clear. Any of the blue stones, if you like, apatite or blue lace agate or something like that, that helps to open up your fifth chakra, which is for communication. Shungite is good to sort of ground yourself and be in the moment. So, if you're a crystal lover, that can be a fun way to just surround yourself with support.
It's so funny, Elizabeth, because I do agree. I think when you can put yourself in some sort of ritual, like there is that connection between mind, body, spirit, whatever it is that like physically gives you a signal that this is when I'm starting this is when I'm ending this, and I think helps you get to that mindset of what you're doing faster. But it just a few years ago, I went to a healing retreat and they did a sound bath. And
Mm.
the sound of the gong was just really, really lovely. So I actually bought myself this like miniature gong. And as you're speaking to myself, I'd be like, how fun is it if part of my ritual is to gong the gong and that says my writing time has begun. And then when
Yeah.
I'm done, I gong the gong again to
Yes, that's
and now I'm
perfect. Yes.
I love it. I'm so gonna try that out. I'll let you know how it goes.
Let me know how it goes. I love it. And that's exactly it. And I'm so glad that you just riffed off of that, Alexa, because there is no one right way to create a writing ritual. It's about what works for you. And like you just started laughing, you were like, oh, and that's great. And it also connected you to that special and sacred space when you're on that healing retreat. And
Yes.
so it gets you in the zone. It's like, yeah, okay, I'm gong. And now I'm gonna channel all this great information coming through. So
Yes. Oh, that's so much fun.
I love it.
Do you suggest that once people have published their book, not everybody writes multiple books. Some people are one and done, some people only have one or two. Like, do you stay in those rituals beyond the publication or writing?
Well, obviously, if you're going to continue writing a new book, you can continue with some of what you've done. But I do think there's some other rituals actually that you can do after you've published. Like I know, for example, for me, when I published Sacred Celebrations back in November, I have a copy of it up on my altar. So I actually have an altar in my office that I look at with, all sorts of, it's got angels and crystals and candles and, important pictures, things that matter to me. And I have a copy of my book up on that altar. And so it reminds me every day, like, this is sacred. This is my life's work. I spent 7 years writing this baby. So just that simple ritual of that. Um, Another ritual, and I know, you've certainly taught a lot of people about this with all of your work, but is the importance of celebrating, having a book launch party.
Yeah.
And that in itself is a ritual, whether it's an in-person party or a virtual party, but having people show up and witness you when you publish your book.
Yeah.
And I was just reading, actually, I think it was in your Facebook group, the Women in Publishing Facebook group. Someone was saying they had just launched a couple days ago, and that at their book launch party, they had all the people who attended came and signed their initial copy. And
Oh,
I thought, what a cool ritual. I wish I had known about that. I would have done that at my book launch party.
wait, they had the attendees come in and sign one book. Oh,
Yes.
that's cool. I love that.
Yes. So it's like a reverse, because usually we're signing books, and
Right.
inscribing them and giving them to the attendees, but it's asking everyone, hey, can you mark this occasion for me,
Mhm.
this special day when this book is coming into the world? And will you sign as a witness
Oh,
that
I
you were here?
love that.
Isn't that cool? Uh,
And on the book launch thing, like there really is something to it, to taking it to the next level on feeling like you're published. I didn't do a book launch for years. Well, my original books were on grief and loss and then parenting, and it just didn't feel, I suppose I could have done with one with the parenting book, but it wasn't until I published my first rom-com, my first fiction book, I
mhm.
finally had a book launch party. I'd been publishing my own books for over 10 years, and it wasn't until that moment like I felt like I'm an author. There's
Mm.
something to that. I never thought of a book launch party as a ritual, but yes, it is. Almost a completion, a celebration of what you've just spent all that time and energy doing.
It absolutely is. And it's really a book birthday party is how I
Mhm.
think about it. So I think about birthdays as being rituals. It's about being witnessed and being celebrated. And it's about sharing, our wisdom with other people. And yeah, it's just to me, there's a community aspect, which actually reminds me something I wanted to make sure we talk about. Can I circle back to
Absolutely.
Okay, so we're talking about different types of writing rituals, and we were talking about rituals for people to do by themselves, but there's also writing rituals we can do with other people.
Oh yeah.
Uh, Thinking about, and you might have some good examples of this too, but I think about like having a write-in where people come together, maybe they're in person, and they set aside, maybe I don't know, 3 hours on a Friday, and I'll go meet up at a coffee shop and they get together and say, okay, we're going to write together. But there's a set formula for how they establish that time together. Maybe there's like a quick check-in, maybe somebody reads, an inspirational quote, or gives people some of maybe a sentence stem, like a journaling prompt to kind of get the juices flowing. And then they all write together. And then at the end of the write-in, people check in, say, what they accomplished, what they worked on, and they make a commitment to what they're doing next.
That's
Um,
actually exactly what we do in WIP school. Every Friday we get together at 12:30 and we do that. We get together on Zoom. We all say hello, what are we working on? Then we turn everything off and we just write for an hour, and then we come back and share, like, if something unexpected happened or what we got accomplished or whatever. It is really nice. I guess I do have one writing ritual.
See, there you go. There
And
you
it's
go.
great. It makes you set aside that container of time, and it gives you accountability, and it gives you that, clear starting and stopping, all those things that we just talked about, but from a little bit of a different perspective there.
Absolutely. Well, and as you know, I mean, and that's what I love so much about your community. And, I've been a part of it since I started Book Launch in a Box last year. And then, of course, at this summit. And I'm coming to Charlotte. So I'm a fangirl if you
All
didn't
the
know.
things. Get all the things. Yay.
But there's something so valuable about being in community. In fact, just this
Yeah.
morning I was coaching one of my coaching clients who's going through a career change, and she's stepping into a career as a writer. And I didn't know that when she hired me. She didn't know that when she hired me. We kind of figured out, okay, what's next? And she's like, oh, I really want to be a writer. I'm like, okay, let's make this happen. And so one of the important pieces we talked about is for her to find a community where she can create a regular ritual of writing.
Yeah. Oh, that's
Because
great.
yeah, sharing resources and just being witnessed by other people. I have a writing group. I have a writing mastermind that I've been in for about 7 years. And it's so fun. We come together once a month, and we'll workshop each other's pages. We'll do like 5 pages a month. But we're so different. Like, one is a biologist, and one is a religion professor, and one is a Canadian aviation historian. And, like, we're so complete, and I, of course, am in the self-help and spirituality genre. So we're also completely different. But that ritual of coming together every month and talking and sharing is just critical for our success. So
Absolutely. Well, I love what we've talked about with the writing rituals, and I hope everybody will go out and think about how they can how create your own ritual to get you into the mind space and place for being able to be creative. But before I let you go, I do want to take advantage of being able to ask you quickly. You are a life and business coach and a shamanic practitioner. So, um, if anybody in our audience who is looking for that type of experience and has the benefit of being with a published author who understands all of those things, would you like to share a little bit about your business?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. Yes. So I've been coaching for 24 years now. So I work primarily with women who are either they own their own businesses, they're entrepreneurs, or they're in transition and they're trying to figure out what's next. I really focus a lot on working with folks who want to be living out loud, living in color. I think, when I started Blab last year, I was in a really bad car accident
Yeah.
and almost checked out. And so this past year has really been about life is short, people. Take the bull
Yes.
by the horns and go live it, with full abandon and in technicolor. So that's a big part of my coaching work in the world, is helping you to stop being afraid, stop playing small, and just get out there and be who you're meant to be.
Got it.
So I do one-on-one coaching. I do some group work. I have a group coaching program called Solid Ground, which is all about helping people navigate transition. And I'm actually hosting my first retreat in a while. I've done dozens of retreats over the years, but my first in a while in Asheville, North Carolina, in the
December.
mountains in October. It's October 24th to 27th, and it's called the Magical Mountain Retreat. And
Oh,
it's a self-care retreat for women. So
okay. I'm
so
definitely gonna have to check that out because this
yes.
and I'll go to Charlotte in October and then move
Yep,
on up to
that's right.
Asheville, which is such a beautiful, beautiful location. I'm
It is.
checking my calendar to see what I have going on at the end of October.
Okay. That would be a good treat for yourself after you've hosted your big event in early October,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
which
Wow.
is on my calendar. So yeah, so folks can find me at my website. It's elizabethbarbour.com, and it's spelled Barbour on the end. And they can sign up, just to do an introductory session to get to know me, or, look at some of the offers that I have as well. So
Well, that is so wonderful. And of course, you've
thanks.
got your book, Smart Self-Care for Busy Women, Find the Me Time You Crave, and Sacred Celebrations, Designing Rituals to Navigate Life's Milestones and Transitions. So those are obviously great places to check out if these are areas of interest as well.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for bringing such a sense of calm and excitement about, I don't know, I love the idea of changing to include more ritual so that the writing does become more special, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, you want it to be more sacred. So often I think we look at it as a chore.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, and it's like we have to fit it in with everything else that we're doing,
Yep.
as opposed to, wait, I get to write. I get to go be creative and spontaneous and inspiring and see what shows up.
And
So
it is a gift that we get to do that. So,
yes.
oh, well, what a wonderful interview. Thank you so much for your time and insights today.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
You're so welcome. Have a great one.
Thanks, you too. Bye.
You don't have to give me your heart. You don't have to give it away. You don't got
Thank you for joining us on the podcast. We hope to see you back for the next episode. Great, huge thanks goes to Jasmine Commerce for the use of her song. You can find Jasmine on SoundCloud. Go check out all of her music. We'll see you next time.